Right.
And so, the abstaining is in reference, as far as food goes, from what is strangled and from blood. But that therefore is really narrowing down the impermissible range of foods.
No, it's just strangled and blood from cows and sheep and chickens. That's what we mean.
Okay, but you see that, so obviously the vast majority of Israel's food laws are not even being made a requirement for the believers here, are they?
No, but they're in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So they weren't giving up that stuff up by then.
No. Well, I don't know what they're giving up. I mean, what we've got here is this is for the Gentiles, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the Gentiles are being told, in terms of food, they just restrain from blood and the meat of strangled animals. And they're not being told they must obey the food laws. So Gentiles seem to have a very limited amount of abstention from foods.
Yeah, but then he wouldn't have mentioned the part about Moses, because there would be no need.
Well, actually, yes, Moses has been read from early generations in every city, for he's read every Sabbath in the synagogues. But then that could also refer to idol worship, because they're to refrain from the pollution of idols and from unchastity.
The problem there is that when Moses read in synagogues, they would read the dietary laws and the Ten Commandments and things like that. So if he didn't want the Gentiles to acknowledge those parts, he would have told them, but don't listen to this part whenever they read it in the synagogue. But when you read that, it's as if he's saying, go and listen to whatever they say in a synagogue and just take it to heart.
If he wanted the Gentiles to continue the food laws, I think it would be very misleading, accidentally or otherwise, but misleading to say to the Gentiles, refrain from the meat of strangled animals and from blood, because he's taken the topic of food and he's focused on that, whereas really he should have either said maintain the food laws in toto or not refer to them at all. But by referring to one aspect, the meat of strangled animals and blood, he's giving the Gentiles the impression that as far as food goes, strangled animals and blood are the only things they have to refrain from. So it's quite misleading if you're a Gentile and you're receiving this instruction.
Yeah, but then you still have the problem of if they go into a synagogue, you know what they're going to get. They're not
The Gentiles wouldn't be going to the synagogues, though, would they?
Yeah, but that's what James is saying.
This is talking about Jews, isn't it? Because it's saying, for from early generations, Moses has had in every city those who preach him, for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogues. So this is the Jews, the Jewish diaspora. Whereas really, it's not pertaining to the Gentiles who will be in their places of worship now.
Yeah, but then that would be changing the subject though. So it wouldn't make sense for him to say that in terms. But they're talking about Gentiles here, not Jews. And the whole subject is about Gentiles.
Well, when he says that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them, and he then gives certain instructions to them.
Yeah.
They're very limited, and it's basically suggesting those limited instructions are taken from Moses. They're not just plucked out of the air. So that to me means he's saying, yes, they should abstain from certain things, but those things are limited, and we shouldn't trouble them in general. And that statement, we shouldn't trouble the Gentiles, is like saying we should not impose upon them the Jewish law. And the law includes all kinds of rituals, but all kinds of food regulations as well.
Right, but so then, when Paul comes up with these lists of things, so he mentions things like fornication and uncleanness. So if we go by what you said there about it's only those four things, then wouldn't that then be a conflict with what Paul's saying?
I think what James is doing when he's writing to them about what things that really pertain to the old law they've got to focus on. But being Christians, they've got the new law from Jesus, which embraces all the moral teachings and intensifies them. And so they've got to obey the law that Jesus has given out of his own mouth. But there are these specific things that they seem to be bothered about, in which interface with the Jewish law specifically, ritual practices of the Jews. And that's why he's mentioning, in terms of ritual practices of the Jews, in terms of food, it's just refrain from strangled animals and from blood.